8:35 as we roll through a Wednesday show on KCMO Talk Radio. So, according to the Kansas City Business Journal, there is 11.6 million square feet of office space in Kansas City that was vacant as of mid-year. That is an expected loss rent value of more than $262 million. Now, Patrick Tuohey is here with the Show Me Institute. Well, wait, I'm told that everybody wants to be downtown. It's the place to be. We got to build more office space. I see developers on social media bragging about all these things they're building. So what's going on here?
Well, they both can be true. And good morning,
Yes.
Pete. They both can be true. You know, if you've lived in Kansas City long enough, you recall the moving Waddell and Reed downtown, and we were going to subsidize that office space.
What happened with Waddell and Reed?
Oh, they went away and were purchased. I forget now the name of the company that purchased them. But
So are they in Overland Park anymore or no? They never went downtown though, right?
I don't think they did.
I don't think they did
That's a great
either.
question. They were purchased and became something else, sort of like Cerner being bought out, and then
Yeah.
all the promises and all the hope we made to have this big employer in Kansas City just goes away. But the Strata deal was another where the city talked about building on spec office space, and then maybe we'll find renters later. And what's driving that is not the needs of the city, not the economics of the metropolitan area. The way Kansas City has set up their development plans, if you can call them plans, is a developer simply shows up and says, give me money and I'll do this neat thing, and then spends time kind of pitching the idea to the city council leaders. There is no, it appears, plan that says, where do we want to be in 5 or 10 years? And then every ask for subsidy says, well, we want to develop this part of town, so we're only going to give you subsidies if you develop here, or we want to kind of look down the road and see what does Kansas City want to be like. We simply just say yes to whoever proposes money to us. What Kansas City needs to do, and by the way, Kansas City is not unique. I don't want to beat up on Kansas City. All downtowns are having this problem. What the city needs to do is say, what are our competitive advantages? What do people want that we are not giving them? What is attracting them to the suburbs around us? Overland Park, Kearney and Liberty are growing. And what can we do to encourage people to give them what they want to come downtown? I love downtowns. I think there are all sorts of reasons to live in a downtown. But I also understand that Kansas City isn't delivering on all the needs. Kansas City isn't providing all the benefits that people want. So rather than say, we've got a crime problem, we've got an education problem, we've got an infrastructure problem, what Kansas City does is say, well, we'll just give you money if you move downtown. And they're not solving those important issues. And Overland Park has been eating Kansas City's lunch as far as population growth for decades. If you go back 100 years and look at the population, everything was in the city proper. Now, of course, Johnson County has grown. Overland Park, Olathe, all these suburbs are growing, and Kansas City has been largely flat. And it's because we refuse to be competitive. Sorry, that's a mini rant there, but it's a big issue. It's a big issue with downtown. We're not going to solve it with subsidies.
Well, it's amazing because, you think about the Royals plans, right? They needed office space. They had to build retail. They had to build restaurants and bars, and this was all part of their big plan downtown. Well, how is that ever going to be successful? I know it's probably off the table now, but how is that ever going to be successful when there's 11.5 million square feet of office space already downtown?
Well, the issue, again, is that Kansas City refuses or appears unable to address these very basic problems that they have downtown, okay? And so every developer comes along and says, all right, I can't fix the city, but if you give me enough money, taxpayer money, I will solve this part of the problem for myself.
Yeah.
So maybe
I was going to say, because there is no problem with office space. There is office space, right?
No, there's plenty of office space.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem is the city isn't delivering the benefits, the things that people want, the safety,
But
the
the world has
infrastructure.
changed too. The world is different. I mean, since COVID, work from home, right?
Yes. No, I don't know that Kansas City can fix the, people want to work from home. I don't know that you can fix that.
Yeah.
But for the people that want to move downtown, for the people that want to work downtown, Kansas City can do a much better job of providing kind of the blank slate, the canvas that a business or a family needs to build their life, to build their business there. Because we don't do that. Cities come in and say, your taxes are too high, your regulation is too much, you don't provide infrastructure, so give us a bunch of money, make it super cheap for us so that we can provide security, we can provide all the things that our employees want. And it's what I've said for years is that Kansas City kind of screws up the market. And then by making things too expensive to build, and we've talked about housing and office space and security and all that stuff before, we make it too expensive for developers to build. And so what we say is, well, we'll give you taxpayer money to pay for some of those increased expenses. Kansas City has turned 0 problems into 2 problems. What the city needs to do is talk to all the people that want to invest in the city, find out what the barriers are, and then work to get those barriers out of the way. Those barriers may include an earnings tax. Those barriers may include infrastructure, plumbing, all the licensing that's required to build something. It may be public safety. It may be all sorts of things. It may be amenities. We want more shopping downtown. It may be all sorts of stuff. But at least listen to the people that want to build, who want to invest, and do what you can to get out of their way. Not cut special deals for every wealthy developer who's got a government affairs department. Well, that's true. And how much can we blame on this organization, Port KC? And I don't know exactly what they do outside of, tell everybody they should get a subsidy. Yeah, well, that is what Port KC does. What Port KC does is allow investors and allow developers to get the taxes they would have paid on a project given back to them. The benefit for Port KC, if you're looking for something like that, is they are not nearly as transparent or as accountable as like the TIF Commission. Well, it seems incredibly corrupt. I mean, I'm not aware of, let's say, just the idea of it seems corrupt to me. No, and it's funny that it's a right of center small government conservative who spends an awful lot of my time in Kansas City kind of railing against that. Like, no, we should have a free market and then allow investors to take the risk themselves. Don't pass the risk of development on to taxpayers. Yeah. And that's what we keep doing. So you end up with a Cerner. Believe me, the owners of Cerner made out fine in that deal. Yeah. They got bought out. They made tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. It's the taxpayer that underwrote all that investment, that is not getting what it was promised and not seeing any revenue from the construction that is built there. What every city needs to do is say, we're going to treat everybody the same. We're going to treat everybody the same as far as taxes and infrastructure, and then we're going to try to get out of everybody's way, and let's see what happens. Yeah. Let's see what entrepreneur we didn't know of who could build something great in Kansas City. Unfortunately, what they do is they end up serving kind of the older, bigger, established companies and ignoring the startups. The way I've put it is I wish Kansas City would spend less time chasing Walmart and more time helping the Sam Waltons out there who are trying to build a Walmart. That's a good way to put it. Patrick Tuohey on KCMO. Before I let you go, I do want to ask you about Kansas City trying to crack down against Lee Summit. So Lee Summit wants to rename its airport, I think the Greater Kansas City Airport or something like that, and Kansas City's pissed about it and is trying to prevent it from happening. Is that right? Yeah. I don't know too many of the details about this. I can understand Lee Summit wanting to identify its location rather than Lee Summit because nobody necessarily knows where that is. And I can understand the city wanting to kind of control its brand. But if we get into the weeds on something like this, every time Olathe gets a great rating in a newspaper as a great place to live or retire, for example, and the Wall Street Journal says Kansas City is on the rise, the leadership of Kansas City is happy for that kind of confusion. We're not actually talking about Kansas City. We're talking about the metro area. So Kansas City leaders benefit from that broad statement of what Kansas City is. Well, yeah, when they say Johnson County, great place to live and schools and family and all that, right? I mean, the city benefits without it being Kansas City, Missouri proper. Right, that's right. So I wonder, maybe there's precedent. Maybe there have been battles over airports or things like this where a neighboring city has said, no, you can't use your name. I don't know. It seems kind of petty, but I'm willing to grant them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there is something here. Okay. I mean, you're right, because it's a fine line. Where do you draw it? I get the city kind of being annoyed by Lee Summit wanting to rename its airport the Greater Kansas City Regional Airport. That could cause confusion, but it's not like
it's not like it's DFW and Love Field where like, hey, I was trying to fly into MCI or KCI and I accidentally flew into Lee's Summit. Like, you can't do that. These are little tiny airports that regular people can't fly into anyway.
Right.
So it feels like it's a pissing contest.
It seems silly at first, but maybe there's something here.
Yeah.
I am sure, somebody flying into the greater Kansas City Municipal Airport and realizing they're in Lee's Summit may be shocked when they see the airport, but then they may be pleasantly surprised that they're probably much closer
well,
than
I was going to say, they
be.
might be closer to where they got to get to anyway than flying into the big airport. So you're right about that.
Yeah. But again, this is kind of one of the things that municipalities do to each other. It's lawsuits, it's competition. I don't know that it's a big deal, but it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, well, that's true. Patrick Tuohey on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks so much.
It's great to be here. Thank you.